Mr. Castro.
Thank you, Chairman. Good afternoon, Ambassador. Welcome. Others close to President Trump have made it clear that investigations were in fact part of the conditions for U.S. assistance to Ukraine, including Rudy Giuliani and Mick Mulvaney, the acting chief of staff. So, Ambassador Sondland, at a press conference on October 17th, acting White House Chief of Staff Mick Mulvaney discussed his belief that it's entirely appropriate to politicize U.S. foreign policy. Ambassador, how often did you speak or meet with Mr. Mulvaney?
Again, based on my lack of records, I'm going by a bad memory.
Just based on your memory.
I only think I had one formal meeting with Mr. Mulvaney, and it had nothing to do with Ukraine. It had to do with a completely unrelated matter.
So did you have a chance to talk with Mr. Mulvaney about your efforts in the Ukraine?
I think most of our communication were through the stream of emails, which others were on generally. And I may have seen him at the White House casually and said hello and, kept in touch, but we didn't have a back and forth.
Well, let me ask you this. Was it your sense that Mr. Mulvaney had a direct line to President Trump? He must have as acting chief of staff, is that right?
Of course.
Let us look at what Mr. Mulvaney said during his October 17th press conference.
Those were the driving factors. Did he also mention to me in the past the corruption related to the DNC server? Absolutely, no question about that. But that's it, and that's why we held up the money. Now, there was a report.
So the demand for an investigation into the Democrats was part of the reason that he ordered to withhold funding to Ukraine.
The look back to what happened in 2016 certainly was part of the thing that he was worried about in corruption with that nation, and that is absolutely appropriate.
He said that President Trump, in that clip, had an interest in the investigations, did he not?
Apparently, yes.
He's the chief of staff. He's somebody that sees the president and has conversation with the president every single day. Wouldn't you expect that?
Just described as a quid pro quo.
I would expect he has a direct line to the president.
Ambassador Sondland, when did you first learn from Mr. Mulvaney that the investigations were holding up the security assistance, if at any time?
I don't know that I heard it from Mr. Mulvaney.
Okay. And Ambassador Sondland, I know that you're not a career Foreign Service officer. Is it your understanding that the U.S. government conditions security assistance on an investigation into a political rival all the time?
I've already testified I didn't think that would be proper.
All right. Well, let us also see what Mr. Mulvaney had to say about that at the same press conference.
Those were the driving factors. Did he also mention to me in the past the corruption related to the DNC server? Absolutely, no question about that. But that's it, and that's why we held up the money. Now, there was a report.
I'll just go ahead and read it for you because this thing. Here you go. I'll read it. He says, and I have news for everybody. Get over it. There's going to be political influence in foreign policy. Knowing what you know now about what was intended with Ukraine, do you agree with Mr. Mulvaney that there's just going to be political influence in foreign policy, or that we should all just get over it and allow a president now or later to investigate a political rival and ask a foreign government to do that? Do you agree with Mr. Mulvaney?
I think there's a big difference between political influence and investigating a rival, because politics enters into everything relating to foreign policy.
So, but you disagree that you agree that the president should not be allowed to ask for the investigation of a political rival?
In the context of what was going on in Ukraine, I believe that the president should not investigate a political rival in return for a quid pro quo.